It may seem hard to believe, but back in my college years, I was one of the coolest computer science kids on campus. Don't know why y'all are laughing. This was back in the day when desktop computers were the size of a desktop. And those large TV tube monitors were the norm. Well, I was cool. So, one semester, I took my hard-earned summer cash and I got a brand new, state-of-the-art, 18-inch flat-screen monitor.
Oh, yeah.
These were the bee's knees back then, and I was so proud to have one. But that's also why I was distraught one afternoon when my cool status was challenged. That pivotal afternoon, I came home from class to find my roommate a little frazzled. He explained that someone had just knocked on the door asking if they had seen any thefts around our place. Of course, we didn't, but I went to my room and then noticed my monitor was gone. And that person was actually the thief trying to steal some more and making sure we weren't home. But they had come through my window and stolen my delightful flat-screen monitor that I was so proud of. To a computer science student, that was the end of me. I mean, I still had my old CRT behemoth that I could use, but my revolutionary code looked so good on that slick, flat screen. I felt ruined. I was also young, and luckily this was the first time in my life that I had felt violated. But I was determined to find the culprit. I spoke with our apartment security guards, with campus police, with city police. How dare someone take from me? It wasn't about the property, it was about the principle of taking something that was mine. I received suggestions to go to the local flea market, to scour Craigslist, see if my stuff was being resold there. And I did. I spent several Saturdays going to the swap meet, see if I could find my precious monitor. My monitor. I had no idea what I would do if I could find it. I don't know if I would have called the cops or just grabbed it and ran away, but I just had to look for it. I interviewed neighbors to see if they had any insight. I called my parents and talked to their insurance agents to see if they had any recourse. Long story short, never saw it again. I must have spent about 30 hours over several weeks trying to hunt down my prized possession. And looking back, I now realize that was pretty foolish. For those hours were during the peak of my college years. I finally had friends. I finally had professors who knew my name. And the field of study was finally clicking and making sense. Those hours were hours that I could have spent diving deeper with these genius professors. Hours I could have spent strengthening relationships with classmates and friends that I would not have for much longer. Hours that I could have spent partying responsibly. Kids are gone. Without a care in the world before my adult life kicked in. In retrospect, I realized that what was really stolen from me that semester was my time. Time, which I will argue today, is the most precious resource we have. Now, when we normally think about precious resources, we think of physical materials that are in short supply: gold and silver, rainforests, natural minerals, money. But with each of those physical resources, you might have an opportunity to get it back. It usually has only changed hands, so it might require a huge investment to get it back, but it might be possible. But time is the only resource where once we spend it, it is gone. Forever. This second, right here, it's now gone. I'm never going to get that again. Same with this one. It's kind of crazy and scary to think about. There's a Stoic philosopher known as Seneca who spent a lot of time thinking about just that. He had a very interesting life that was filled with crazy highs and lows. He was born into a noble family. He wrote some influential plays. He got exiled to an island for 8 years, became the chief advisor to the Roman emperor, and then got sentenced to death by forced suicide. He has seen some stuff. And in between all that, he did a ton of philosophy and gathered some of his thoughts in an essay called On the Shortness of Life, which he wrote around 2,000 years ago. Still relevant today. I was lucky enough to come across an analysis of it by Dmitry Baratin, a self-described practical optimist who explores philosophy in his spare time. Dmitry postulates that if Seneca were around today, he would have the following to say. Everyone complains about how short life is, but that perspective is broken. Life is not short. The real issue is that we waste so much of it. In fact, life is long enough for you to achieve your wildest dreams. You're just so busy wasting it that you get to the end without living much of it. In regards to my precious computer monitor getting stolen, he would reply, "It's surprising that most people wouldn't let anyone steal their property, but they consistently let people steal their time, which is infinitely more valuable." No one is willing to hand out their money randomly, but that's exactly what you do with your time. You're very frugal with your physical possessions, but when it comes to your time, you're wasteful of the only thing in the world that you should actually be frugal with. You can't touch or feel time, so it's hard to really grasp it. But if your doctor told you you had a deadly illness, you'd spend every cent you have trying to stay alive. That's how much your time is actually worth to you. But on a day-to-day basis, you treat it like it's completely worthless just because you can't see it. Now, I have a strategy for this because he's right, time is hard to see. But check out this poster I got last year that's hanging up in my office. It's a little bit hard to see, but each of those circles represents a week. They're lined out in 52 weeks. Each row is a year. And I'll tell you, as I check off each of those boxes, I look back at my week and I think, did I use that week wisely? And a few months ago, when I completed that last row of my 40th year, I got a huge kick in my butt as I felt the midlife crisis coming on. Thank you, Spencer. Dmitry, as Seneca continues, it's even worse when people come up with deferred life plans. They'll say something like, when I'm 40, I'm going to retire and write a book. Or, I'll do this thing I hate right now so I can make money, and then in 10 years, I'll do what I really love. Seriously? You think that the universe is going to let you proceed your life the way you want it to? What guarantee do you have of even making it to that age? And when he says that, I'm immediately reminded of my father-in-law, who worked long hours for almost 50 years straight, only to retire. And in the first year of retirement, he had a major stroke and was left paralyzed and unable to speak for the rest of his life. Breaks my heart. Putting things off for the future is the biggest waste of a life. You deny yourself the present by promising the future. You're relying on the future, which is outside of your control, and abandoning the present, which is the only thing you can control. The whole future lies in uncertainty, so live immediately. Now, to me, that sounds great. I'd love to go to the beach every day and not stress about reality, work, bills, health, but we all know that's not practical. But what I think we need to take away from this is that our time is finite, and we need to be careful if we're spending it on a path where we only care about the end result and not the journey. We should live our lives intentionally and be aware when our time is stolen from us little by little. We should avoid spending time on things that don't really matter to us. On a personal note, this year has been a tough one for my family. We've suffered some loss. Back in April, Kelly's dad, who I mentioned earlier, was placed on hospice, and she held his hand as he struggled to take his last breath. A month later, we learned that our family dog, Zelda, had an aggressive form of bone cancer, and we had to say goodbye to her shortly afterwards. And while we were trying to escape that double dose of grief by spending time at my grandparents' lake cabin with family, we learned that it was to be sold, and we wouldn't be able to continue our annual family vacations there. It was some heavy stuff for us. In this time of mourning, I recalled all the good times I had with what I was losing. I cried a lot. It sucked, and it still sucks. But I realized that what I was grieving was the memories. I kept bringing up all the good times I had, and that those weren't going anywhere. I'd still always have the moment I asked Terry for his blessing to marry his daughter. I'll still always be able to recall the comical time when we brought our first baby home from the hospital, and Zelda, our dog, refused to come inside because she was outside barfing. She was no longer the top priority and could not handle that. I'll still have the memory of my grandpa shouting, "Attaboy," after I got up at a single ski behind his speedboat at that lake house. And I can't help but think about the quote that I thought was from Winnie the Pooh, but upon research shows it might not be the case. But the quote, "How lucky am I to have had something that makes saying goodbye so hard." Yes, I am lucky to have had so many meaningful moments with that which I've lost. Could it be that I'm so emotional with these memories because they were such meaningful moments? That the time I spent with Kelly's dad, with my first dog, with my childhood vacation spot, that I spent that time so purposely and so intentionally, and that's what made them so impactful? And if so, then I don't have a solution for grief. That's hard. But instead, maybe a confirmation that I spent my time wisely with those that I'm mourning. There was something special about that lake house that we're losing. It was in the middle of nowhere. Couldn't get cell phone reception, good TV signal, and for a long time, no internet. People just put their devices away, you don't look at them. So whenever I was there, I was spending time, quality time, with those around me, playing cards, time in the water, watching sunsets, being retrospective on life. I have so many memories of those vacations. And it makes me realize that we live in an age of countless digital distractions, always begging for our attention. Emails, likes, alarms, text messages, tweets, infinite scrolling. I have to turn off my phone before service to make sure I don't get any buzzing in just 1 hour. Tom Johnson, a technical writer from Seattle, talks about when he was asked to join a book club and documents his journey starting this new book. He says, "Sometimes I'd occasionally pull out my phone with no particular reason, unlock the screen and just stare at it dumbly, not sure which app to open. And when I caught myself doing this, I hear laughs in the audience, and it's because I know you can relate. I was kind of shocked, but also too desensitized to act. In every spare moment of inattention, I occupied my focus with my phone's information. Something was wrong." Cal Newport, an author in the digital minimalist movement, reiterates, "The urge to check Twitter, or now X, and refresh Reddit becomes a nervous twitch that shatters uninterrupted time into shards too small to support the presence necessary for an intentional life." Has anyone else noticed this? You're trying to focus on something, and for some reason, instead of that task, you distract yourself with some news or a social media feed. It makes being productive pretty difficult. Now, it's not entirely our fault. I recall a conversation with my wife where she was distracted with her phone after we had put the kids to bed, and it was finally our time to hang out. And when I challenged her why she was glued to her phone, she responded she had 1 million emails to respond to, and if she didn't respond to them now, she'd have 2 million by the next morning. And I can't blame her for wanting to get ahead of that queue. Seneca would say, "In your mind, you genuinely think you're going to live forever. You think you have an infinite supply of time, and you keep spending it on the first thing that pops up without giving it much thought." We do. We live in a world that requires so much of our precious time. So how do we manage that? To be honest, I don't have a simple solution. There's been countless books and methods on time management because everyone works differently and we all need to find what works for us. But they do typically have one thing in common, and it starts with logging your time. Now, you don't have to do this every day, but I challenge you to take one day, maybe next week, and log how you spend it. How long did breakfast take? What about that quick phone call you just had to make? Where did the time go? And looking back, were there any moments that you were killing time before the next thing? At the end of the day, take a look at that log and reflect on it. Seeing how you spent your time laid out in front of you, are there any changes you would want to make tomorrow? And I want to be clear that not every moment has to be productive. It is 100% okay to do nothing. Take a nap if you need it. We are all tired. If you do get joy out of checking Facebook to catch up with friends, that's fine. The key is to be intentional about doing it. Think to yourself, I'm choosing to do this because I want to, not because it's the routine, not because I'm bored or distracted, not because someone else is asking me to do it, but instead I know I'm choosing to spend my precious time on this activity. Now, when I take that perspective and a solicitor comes to the door asking for a moment of my time, I'm okay saying no thanks, closing the door and going back to my kids. When someone asks me to volunteer, sorry, but I'm not going to do it unless it's an activity that I feel happy to be a part of. I'm definitely going to think twice before taking a new job that requires extra commute and traffic. And I'm still working on this part. But when I have a few minutes to kill before heading to work, perhaps instead of bringing up my phone and checking out the latest news, maybe I can sit and listen to the birds, take a moment of reflection. I know I titled this The Secret to a Long Life. And if anyone else is as literal as I am, they might be looking for an exact formula to live longer. And I'm not going to let you down. I actually do have one, for in my research, I came across something known as the Blue Zones Power 9. Blue zones are geographic regions where people consistently live longer than the world average. Areas like Ikaria, Greece, and Okinawa, Japan. What could it be about them or these zones that increase their longevity? Some researchers got together, did a huge study in their environments, and they came up with the following 9 habits. Number 1, move naturally. People who live the longest engage in regular, everyday activity rather than specific exercise routines. They maintain active lifestyles through tasks like gardening or manual housework. Number 2, purpose. Having a clear sense of purpose or a strong reason for just waking up each day can extend your life expectancy by up to 7 years. 3, downshift. People in the blue zones, they still have stress, but they manage it with daily rituals like ancestor remembrance, prayer, napping, and happy hour. Number 4, the 80% rule. This practice involves stopping eating when you're 80% full, which can help aid in weight management. Number 5, plant slant. The diets of people in these regions are mostly plant-based, with beans being a major component. Meat is consumed sparingly, about 5 times per month, and in very small serving sizes. Number 6, wine at 5. All but one of these regions consume alcohol moderately and regularly. They typically drink 1 to 2 glasses of wine a day, often with friends or food. Unfortunately, you can't save that up all week and have 14 drinks on Saturday. Number 7, belong. Nearly all the people who live in the longest regions participate in some form of religious community, regardless of the specific faith. Regular participation in religious services can add several years to life expectancy. Y'all are doing that right now. Number 8, loved ones first. Those who live the longest tend to prioritize their family. They keep aging parents and grandparents close or in their homes. They commit to a life partner and devote time and love to their children. And lastly, number 9, the right tribe. Long-lived individuals are part of social circles that encourage healthy behaviors. Studies show that smoking, obesity, happiness, even loneliness can be contagious. So being around those that have healthy habits helps you tremendously. Now, I can't make any promises, but according to the researchers of that study, they predict that the average person's life expectancy could increase by 10 to 12 years by adopting a Blue Zones lifestyle. It's kind of cool. Now, I've spoken a lot today on our personal time. But before I close, I want to examine the inverse of that, other people's time. If we know how valuable time is to us, how should we be treating other people's time? If you agree that time is our most precious resource, then perhaps there's no better gift you can give to someone than time. Spending focused time with them, ensuring we don't waste their time, thinking twice before we stand someone up, and ensuring we're not late or making them wait for us. Perhaps even giving them time by taking something off of their plate. It's a pretty powerful gift. Priceless gift. Has anyone heard of the five love languages? Some of you, so you know where I'm going with this. It's no surprise that quality time is one of those 5 love languages. For some people, nothing says I love you more than your full, undivided attention. And to be honest, quality time is not my love language, but I can vouch that when my wife gives me uninterrupted focus with phones down, eye contact, and really shows an interest in how I'm spending my time, I feel her love. I think the concept of death is scary. It freaks me out that I'll no longer have any more time on this earth. But something tells me that if I'm on my deathbed and I'm filled with memories of time well spent with my kids, with my wife, family, this earth, this loving community, memories of making this world a better place, then I might be more at peace with it. Because I think that what I'm scared of is not death, but waste, taking my life for granted. And even if I don't live a long life, if I have a fulfilling life, that may be enough. In closing, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to each of you. Time is our most invaluable resource, never to be regained once it has passed. And that you have chosen to spend some of your time with us here today is an honor I do not take lightly. I hope our reflections inspire you to treasure each moment, living fully, loving profoundly, building a life filled with meaning and connection. And as you go forth, I wish you a chance to view each second as a unique opportunity, a chance to craft an intentional life. May each tick of the clock echo with purpose, joy, and of course, abundant love. Thank you for your time. May it be so.